All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. Rough day today, so we're doing an impromptu live stream. Welcome to everybody who is new to the stream, and hello to all of you existing subscribers and existing members. Thanks for joining us on a rough day. A bunch of stuff went on today, so we want to talk about a bunch of different things. Obviously, there was a downward move in Bitcoin. The Bitcoin miners did not do well today. There was a short report put out. There's some info on the ETFs, so we got a bunch to go through. Hello, George.
Tom, thanks for doing this with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Glad you can join us on this. This is not the all-time best day.
You guys, I did something right before this stream, and you got to figure out what it was.
Uh-oh. All right, we're gonna play guess what George did.
I just got done doing it. That's why I look like this. So.
Oh. Huh. All right. Let's see. All right, so let's go here before I forget. So we got our chart up. It's not pretty. We'll talk about it. But first, of course, if everybody could please do us a great big favor and smash the like button. It helps the stream out in real time in a big way. We got to have a big stream today because today was a rough day, and I want to talk about where we're at. I want to talk about some of the technicals. George and I are going to give some different price targets, some potential things that I think are going to happen and he thinks are going to happen, and then we'll see what you guys think are going to happen. One of the best things about our live streams is, and that's why, the more people, the better, we do a bunch of polls, and it really helps try to gauge what sentiment is out there. And of course, these are rough days. So I always say, we get together on some of the good days and the great days, but I think it's much more important to get together on these down days and talk about what's going on. Talk about, we're going to zoom out a little bit as always, and we're going to zoom in because you know what? Sometimes the news is not always great, and there's all different time frames, right? What's going to happen today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year, what's going to happen long term. So, we got to differentiate between all of those things and try to really reflect and take a true look at what we think is coming next, because this is everybody's money, so this is real.
And oh my God, yeah. How come it seems to go down so much faster than it goes up? Can you tell me that one?
Well, you say that right now when it's down, but there were about 75 days that it seemed like up. There was no end to the upward momentum. The real Gary Ginsler, thank you for the super chat. George, looking younger and younger. That background.
Thank you, sir.
Oh boy.
So I have a question. How long are you going to make everybody sweat it out on HUT?
Ha. We're going to talk about HUT, but I do not have a definitive answer on HUT, right? I'll tell you what I think. For those of you who don't know, there was a short report put out. I'm going to look at it briefly, and I want to go through it. And I want to pinpoint one thing that they talked about because, it was a very, very long report. I will say the vast majority of that report, they were not talking about HUT, old HUT and, the HUT that we know, the HUT management team that we know. They really didn't spend any time on that. This was more about the USBTC, or if I'm saying that wrong, the company they merged with. This was a detailed report on them. It was really, really, whether it's right or wrong, we can discuss, but this was this was a vintage, full scale, all out assault hit piece short report. Now, is some of it true? I don't know. We're gonna have to get to the bottom of that. I am gonna point out one thing that I was able to verify in a positive or negative way and let you guys know what that was. And some of these things are maybe indicators as to the bigger picture.
I was gonna say there's a lot of very true statements in there. There's a lot of true statements, especially if you go to the actual report.
I read the whole report, and it's very, very long. And I will say, I power read it, I sped read it. So,
but you have to agree that there's some things in there that are correct.
I don't know. You can tell me what some of those are. I really didn't see anything that I could verify as correct.
CompuNorth. What is it?
They
North.
Yes, they bought the
Yeah,
assets
yeah.
of Compute North, but that's not a negative
No,
statement.
but I'm just
That's
saying.
just a
No, no. What I
I
said
mean, you could
was
also say the sky
that.
is blue.
Yeah, it is.
Well, yeah,
But
but you can't have a short report that says this company's garbage. I mean, if you read the report, it's brutal. So to put a few
so
statements that are neutral in there and say those are true, I don't
well,
think.
one of the things that's really interesting, Tom. Now you're going to get into the meat of it, because now you're making me look stupid. Is
No,
no. Hang on. It's the thing about Niagara and the Niagara power plant that they bought, and how it flipped hands really quick. And that's all they, and there's some truth to that. There's just a lot of things there that I think that they've glossed over, and they don't really, we're not really paying attention to. I think that's pretty much what they're trying to bring to our to the forefront.
there's yes, there's a lot of information in there. So I'm sure some of it might be completely true. Some of it might be based on a true story. Some of it might be true and really important. Some of it might be true and not important at all. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
the hard part about, and it's a very, very long report. As you know, I'll find it. I got it up here
It'd be
somewhere.
interesting to see what happens tomorrow. I mean, as this sinks in and a lot of people get into it and really, you know, digest it.
Yeah, I mean, then this is a classic knee-jerk reaction. I'm surprised this got hit as hard as it did, and we'll do a poll. Have you guys seen this report? I had to reboot everything, and I'm wondering if it's not up on my screen right now. If it's not, I will find it because there was an exact passage I wanted to go to. So I'll try to find that. Everything got just before the stream started, I had to reboot everything, so some of what I had up and ready to show you guys is not there, but I will find it. I hate having to find stuff in real time. I'm usually all prepped and
I
ready,
have to,
but
since
we
you're
had a
doing that,
glitch.
Tom, I'll tell everybody what happened with Bitcoin today. I bought a lot more today. That's what happened.
You did. You bought.
Yeah, I bought a lot more. Yeah.
Excellent. All
I
right.
have a position. If it goes down $1,500 to $2,000, I'm getting more. That's my new rule. Until 20,000, if it ever goes to 20,000, which I don't think it will, but
I'm gonna bring this. I'm not gonna go through this yet, but I just want to reload this report.
did you call Sue? That's the question everybody's going to ask you.
Yes.
Oh, did she answer?
So we exchanged emails,
Oh,
and so
nudes.
this is the short report. J Capital Research. I'll get to the specific thing that I take a little bit issue with in a minute, but I will say, I did reach out to Sue. As you can imagine, she's not going to say anything to me specifically. So, she did say, I said, is there anything you can let us know, or can you at least let us know that, you're going to be coming out with a statement, so that typically what happens with these short reports is there's a short report and then there's a response. So she did say she's working on it. So I think, you can expect a response from Hut 8 so that, there, and they overwhelm you with information. It's 45 pages long, so there's a lot to respond to. So I don't know when that response is going to come out. And obviously she can't sit here and say anything to any one individual, myself or anybody otherwise. But she did say they're working on a response, and I expect a response from them. And again, it didn't really. The report completely focused on the company that they merged with. Not really. Not so. There were a few little negative comments about existing Hut. They kind of called it a zombie company, uh, and I'll tell you why I think that doesn't make sense either. And I'm not here to tell you to buy or sell Hut. There was a short report out. It's a very long, and if some of that stuff is true, obviously you got to read it for yourself if you're an investor. Anthony, thank you very much for the super chat. Anthony said, classic paid hit piece from a no name on Hut. I feel like I agree with that statement. I mean, I understand there's a lot of information in there, and I'm not going to sit here and say I've digested all 45 pages of that report and vetted it out and figured out what's true and what's not true. You know, to George's point, there was an awful lot of information in there, and so, you know, and every company has good things and bad things. I'm just
All right.
surprised this took such a massive hit in such a short, you know, in a 1 day period of time. So, and this is a company, they call themselves activists. They say that they put out short and long reports, but so, you know, that usually means short reports. So, and I did find other short reports. They may have put out positive reports. I mostly see short reports from them. There's several of these companies that put out short reports, and that doesn't mean they're wrong. And you know, they may serve a function in the grand scheme of things, right? If there's a company out there that, you know, is doing something and we need to know about it, then, you know, good for who, you know, whoever does it to give us that information. But I'm not sure where this one lands yet. I will say we can expect a response from Hut. So I think, you know, the first thing is to hear both sides of the story. And the second thing is, even myself personally, I don't know about you guys, but I need a lot more time to dig into 45 pages worth. Now, I will say they had, you know, 2 pages were on, and this is where I feel like they lose a little credibility. They had what they referred to as a chief meme officer,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
and it was a little kid. So, listen, I don't know, but to me, in all likelihood, that was more of an honorary title for somebody's kid. And they did say it was a relative. It was one of their kids. I don't think the chief meme officer had a lot of key responsibility at the company. In fact, I would be surprised if they had any actual responsibility at all. What would a meme officer do? And they spent 2 pages, you know, going into that as if somehow, you know, it was a
I thought that was
negligence
really
or
that kind of destroyed the whole report. By the way, that just was like, what are you looking at?
this is what I'm saying. Like, for
Yeah.
them to fixate on that, you know, show the kid's Twitter account and then they blacked out a little portion of it, you know, as if you're not gonna be able to figure out who it is. And I just, that's why I'm saying, like, and again, I'm not gonna sit here and give a definitive answer like, oh, I know, you know, I know definitively every single thing about the short report. I need more time. It just came out today, and you know, a
Well,
lot happened today.
here's what happened today. I almost bought Hut this morning, and I sold out yesterday. And I said to Tom, I said, Tom, there's going to be movement in Hut today. I didn't know there was going to be this type of movement, but there was.
You dodged a bullet. You changed your mind,
Yeah.
and you, because George, he did talk to me about that, and you know, one of the things you were talking about it before they were ringing the opening bell, and I think we talked
Yeah.
about this on the members only stream, and you decided not to go with it, and that turned out to be a great move. I do
Yeah.
have a position in Hut. There, it's not one of my big positions, but I do have a position, and you know, all day I did nothing. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, I did do a little. All day I did nothing with Hut, that is. I did some other stuff. I'll let you guys know what I bought and or sold, if anything. Um, I did, near the end of the day, I added a little bit to my position in Hut. Once I got, you know, a first glance through this short report, I just felt like, you know, here's the thing. If you look at their market cap, and then we'll move on, and not everybody's here to just talk about Hut, and we'll come back and dig a little deeper as well, but I don't want to just fixate on this one thing, but I just want to show you one other thing. If you look at what happened to this, I look at this in 2 different ways. They were about a $500 million company before the merger. So after today's beatdown, they're, you know, just a $633 million company, which essentially means that the company they merged with is getting very close to a zero valuation at this point anyway. So even if they were garbage, the market has now, with this short report, valued them at pennies on the dollar. The other thing is, if you take Hut's total, that's half their market cap at this point. So, you know, there's some reasons there was some quick reasons for me to say, you know what, maybe this is a little bit overdone. And again, it's one of my smaller positions. I added only a small amount, and I'm not we never give financial advice here. I'm not telling you to buy this. This is extreme volatility. So I would say the opposite. Buyer beware. This is extremely volatile. This was day one of a short report. We don't know where we go from here. Darren said, late in the day, all the money was running scared. Thank you, Darren, for the super chat, by the way. And thanks for being a longtime member and subscriber. Late in the day, all the money was running scared. I dig for gems. I bought tomorrow calls on HUT, already beautifully green heading into tomorrow. Recovery, always an opportunity to make money. So Darren jumped on this. This is a couple of times in a row. I did something small and Darren did the same thing, but bigger. So I think the last one worked out really well. And, I feel like this one will too. So we'll see. Thanks again, Darren, for the comments and good luck. I do think there'll be a bounce. Usually this is how it plays out. Long term, I don't know what the answer is, but there's usually a response to these reports, and that gives it a little bounce. Not to mention, this did reach. I want to go to the chart because this got to a place that no Bitcoin miner has been to in between 3 to 6 months. And so let me bring up the chart. So with today's, and it may not quite have gotten there. So with today's action, this is the 1-day chart for HUT. So this is the 1-day chart. This is the 1-day RSI. You'll see HUT finished at 31.53. So oversold. 30 is considered oversold. You'll see they have not been there since September of 2023. So this was a long stretch, and most of the Bitcoin miners, actually, I believe this is the closest. Riot might be a little bit closer. So, this got them very near a really good buying opportunity from this perspective as well. So you can see there was a lot of little pieces to the puzzle where by the end of the day, I was like, you know what, let me just at least stick my toe in the water and get a little bit here because, there's a lot of reasons to believe maybe this is starting to get oversold and overdone. So this was one of the things that I looked at. We've been waiting a long time. Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners have not had a reset on the daily RSI in months and months and months. This is the better part of 4 months, and Bitcoin's been even longer than that. We'll take a look at that as well.
So Tom, I've been putting in too much powder in this game.
You put too much in and didn't leave enough on the sidelines?
No, I'm just reaching in and going deeper.
Oh, all right. Good.
I'm thinking about I'm ready to double down. Splitting the aces.
Is that expand on that?
No, I'm thinking about taking every single one of my positions that I'm down just unbelievable amount of money and splitting it. But I'm waiting for it to get to I think Bitcoin's going to 38. Everybody's asking for a poll, by the way. It'd be interesting to see what's going on with people's mindset on the price. None of this is scaring me on the price, by the way.
Yeah, well, if you're considering doubling down, then you're definitely not scared. This is the most confident I've seen George, even though, and George has been pounding the table. He thinks he has thought we're going to have pullback, and we're more than in the middle of it. So to that extent,
there's a lot of noise out there with a lot of stuff going on that could really make it.
All right,
boom,
welcome to Talking Investing.
Go nuts.
Yes.
The
real Gary Ginsler, thanks for the super chat, said buying in the red is like pissing in the wind. That's another thing I don't recommend.
I've done that before.
All right.
Yeah, why is 38 the bottom? I don't think 38's the bottom. I think, 35.
Anthony.
34.5. That's the bottom, probably.
So
Not financial advice.
So maybe that's where
Go ahead.
Maybe that's our poll. First, I want to welcome Anthony. Well, Anthony just joined the Talking Investing squad. Welcome to the squad. There are a bunch of Bitcoin miner deep dives that I have done for members, Hive, Bit Digital, Cypher, Stronghold, BitDeer, and MicroStrategy, which of course is not a Bitcoin miner, but it's obviously Bitcoin related. They are the publicly traded company that holds the most Bitcoin in the world. So those are sitting there waiting for you. Thanks for joining.
Anthony, and I will tell you to watch Tuesday's live stream, members only, which was just the 16th.
Oh,
Watch
yes.
that, and you will be very happy.
We did a special detailed analysis for members only on the live stream this past Tuesday. I think that was good. Thank you, George. Good point.
Let's just say all these miners, Bitcoin miners, aren't going to make it. There's like the egg. There's some cracking.
I agree. I think there's going to be some winners and losers. With that, George, what do you think the first poll should be?
What is the next move for Bitcoin? Like always, are we going down? So what do you want to do? 35 is the low, 38, 40, 42, or above 42 or something like that? You do.
Let's go. We've been since we have a line and we've been talking forever about 38,000, and we're not too far away right now. By the way, we'll make that one.
I can tell you right now, nobody honestly can tell you what's Bitcoin gonna do tomorrow. Nobody. I've been saying this before this whole thing with the ETF is, remember, this is a game. They try to keep it to a certain price point, but they know what they're doing and they don't want it to violently move.
One more second.
February, a historically very strong month for BTC. And here's the thing about Bitcoin miners that we always forget. It can turn on a dime. Tomorrow could be a totally different day, and it could be like, you don't want to miss it, if you are into this type of risk. This is very risky. You can be down hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, guys?
You said it. This turns on a dime. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, sentiment turns, the stocks turn. It's all right. So let's get the poll is what's next for Bitcoin. So, next
What'd you pick?
So 30, are we going to go down to 38,000, which we've been talking on the channel about a lot? Are we going to go down to 35,000 or lower? Are we going to stay in this range? We technically have not left this $40,000 to $44,000 range. We are, very close to. We'll look at this. We're very close to hitting, breaking to the downside. But are we going to stay inside of our range or back up to 48,000 and then beyond? Where's everybody think we're going? What's next for Bitcoin? One thing that I will say about today's price action on the Bitcoin miners, and it's been pretty brutal. Since December 27th, the price action on the Bitcoin miners has been horrendous. And I will tell you, I've seen a lot of people, the information out there is coming at us very fast and furiously. And I feel like the amount of this is the highest level of misinformation or disinformation, or maybe just people that didn't do their due diligence or don't necessarily quite understand how things work. People are throwing stuff out there, and I just hear a lot of things that aren't ringing true to me, and I think it's causing short-term massive volatility. It's really it's causing retail investors to get out. This is terrifying retail investors. There's just no question about it. A lot of narratives out there. I don't think there's a lot to support what they're saying. Some of them are just flat out incorrect. So, it's the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And we've been down this road many, many times with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. So one of the things I will say is the Bitcoin miners started selling off. December 27th was the peak for basically every single Bitcoin miner. Since then, and we're only 2.5 weeks later, we're not that many trading days later. I think it's been 13 trading days since then. And, they basically almost all been red. a lot of them have been very red. We'll take a look at these. Most of Bitcoin miners are down on the magnitude of 40 to 50%. Some are down even worse than that. So, that's what's happened in an incredibly short period of time. A lot of people are saying, and I heard this on several other channels. I have been trying to listen to what other people are saying for the main reason is to just try to understand, what's everybody else saying. And, if I can clean some stuff up, and again, obviously I'm only giving you, what I think to be true or, from based on my research and my understanding of things. So, just the same, you shouldn't just listen to me either. I'm sure you don't. So somebody's asking what narratives are incorrect. So I'll get into a few of those. One of the first one is a lot of people are saying, the passing the spot ETFs are tanking the Bitcoin miners. So that is just completely false. And I say that for a specific reason. Most of the move down for the Bitcoin miners happened before the spot ETF. So the Bitcoin miners were headed straight and down in a straight line while Bitcoin was running up and bouncing off of 49,000. So yes, the push down continued after that, but there is no correlation. This does not have anything to do with the Bitcoin miners. There's several other factors. No one thing is 100% of the reason. A lot of people, we've speculated as to what some of those are, and we can only speculate. Nobody knows for absolute certain. But what we do know is that the peak for the Bitcoin miners was December 27th. In the 7 trading days after that, all the Bitcoin miners were already down between 30 and 40%. That was long before the ETF got approved on the 10th. And Bitcoin itself peaked on the 11th. Bitcoin hit basically a 2-year high on January 11th. The Bitcoin miners were already in a free fall at that point. And there's a reason that I bring all this up, because I think today actually signaled a little bit of a turn. And I think that's good news for the Bitcoin miners. And I'll show you why. If you look, so this gold line right here at 42,638, for those of you new to the channel, for those of you know what this is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday on Wednesday. So at the close of Wednesday, Bitcoin, at the close of the equity markets on Wednesday, Bitcoin was at 42,638, and it was down on the day. So since that time, from that until the close today, and this red candle right here was the close today. So to compare apples to apples, this was the trading day for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin was down over 4.5% from yesterday's close to today's close of the equity markets. In the past, we've seen Bitcoin be flat or down 1%, and the Bitcoin miners down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sometimes 15%, sometimes more. Today, you see a 4.5% move to the downside. This is Bitcoin's biggest move to the downside in this whole run down. And you'll see Bitfarms down 8%, Hive 7, Cleanspark 6, the big 2, Riot was down 5, Marathon 6.8. So those were a little bit worse than Bitcoin, but a much, much, much closer relationship. Over the past 13 trading days prior to this, the move for the Bitcoin miners was drastically worse than the move for Bitcoin. In fact, there were some days where Bitcoin was up and the miners had horrendously red days. So things got a lot closer today. This is a day, had this been 5 days ago and Bitcoin was down 4.5%, we might have seen 20, 25, 30% moves to the downside. And remember, that may sound like crazy talk, but just the second last week of 2023 in December, there was about 15 different instances in a 5-day period of stocks going up over 20% in one day. So, George was talking about how this downside is vicious, but these moves are vicious. And, I've been accused of using hyperbole, but to me, a 20 or 30 or 40% move in one direction in one day, that is brutal, right? Most of that would be a year for, the majority of stocks. That would be a big year for an index. And so I think today the Bitcoin miners, despite the fact that this was an awful red day all the way around, I actually think it was a little bit encouraging from the Bitcoin miner standpoint.
So you think we're at the bottom now, Tom? That's what you're thinking? I know this ain't financial advice, but
I don't think we're at the bottom, but I think we're seeing a deceleration in the move to the downside, which means we're starting the bottoming process. And I'll go to a few. I think it's worth picking. I'll start with Marathon because that is by far and away the most traded stock out of all the Bitcoin miners. By the way, it's been for the last many weeks now, and I didn't even look today, but you know what? I will look. Typically, it's been the most traded stock in the U.S. stock market almost every single day. When it's not, it's second or third. So if I go to the most active stocks, oh, of course, and today it's third. That's the worst I've seen in a long time. It has been number one the majority of days. Usually it's Marathon and Tesla, I guess AMD. And so this was 90 million shares versus 107 and 130. So you can see these three are just blowing away the rest of the field. Now, that's number of shares traded. So obviously, if you do the math, Tesla from a dollar volume standpoint is always the number one traded stock on the stock market because it's, one of the top 2 or 3 in volume every day, and it's much more expensive. But my point is, for this small little industry that we're in here, the Bitcoin miners, Marathon is a hugely popular stock. And it's popular with retail investors and it's popular with institutional investors. So, this is the most mature from that standpoint. Riot is not quite in the same category. And you'll see that, in the last 2.5 months, Riot for almost, for the first 10 months of 2023, Riot was the largest market cap out of all the Bitcoin miners. Marathon passed it. It has not looked back. I personally think it deserved to pass it. So, that's my opinion. I actually have a much bigger position in Riot than I do in Marathon. But at this moment, and as George likes to point out, it's a fluid situation. Things change. And I'm more bullish on Riot than most people are. I think there's a lot of good things coming for Riot. But Marathon has their performance operationally. They finally are doing what we hoped they would do, what we thought they could do. And, they're clicking on all cylinders, in my opinion, right now. And I think more good things ahead. So I did buy more Marathon today. I will let everybody know. For me, I've been telling everybody for the last several months, I slowed my pace down. I continue to buy the dips and dollar cost average, but I slowed way down maybe 2.5 or 3 months ago because I took advantage of a lot of buying opportunities in the 12 to 15 months prior to that and built out what I considered full positions. So I'm just trying to be very strategic now and buying in very slow and methodical because I do think there is potentially more room to the downside.
So Tom, do you think I should do $7.50 calls again for CleanSpark? Sell them?
Well, how did that go last time?
The stress was unbelievable, and I wish I would have kept them. Look at this, unbelievable.
If you had, it is unbelievable to me that had you kept those, you would have got all your money.
Would have made the money.
Yep.
Instead, I lost like stupid money.
So let's go to Marathon for a minute. All right, so you'll see Marathon's taken out a couple of what I thought would be potential lines of support. There was this one really. This was the high of 2023. So on July 14th or July 13th or 14th, all the Bitcoin miners hit the high for the year until December when a lot of them went past that. And you can see Marathon went way past that. So in a couple of days here, Marathon just took that out, They then took out this green line, goes back to August of 2022. They took that out. My next line is at around $14.65. There was, and this is not a lot of support, but you can see for about a week, it gapped up to this and it held there as support for about a week. So, but what I'm more looking at than this, so that's, potential $14, $15 is a price target I have in mind. But the other thing that I'm looking at for all of these Bitcoin miners, and it's why I'm not really going all in here. First of all, I never go all in. That's just me. You guys, there's a million different ways to trade, but I try to be methodical about this. And the reason, I've really slowed down even more. I bought very little today on a very red day, and it's because most of these have not only taken out a few lines of support, but they've also, you can see right now, Marathon's at 38.6 on the daily RSI. So this is one of the things I look at. And I know there's a million different data points if you want to get into technical analysis. But to me, this is a super simple one that I think is fairly reliable. And, it's not perfect. And you got to take it in the big picture along with everything else that's going on. But you can see if we go all the way back to, this goes all the way back October 18th. So since October 18th, Marathon's been above this on the daily RSI. And for most of that period of time, from November 8th to January 11th, so more than 2 full months, Riot was above 50 on the daily RSI. This was true for a lot of the Bitcoin miners, and it was true for Bitcoin. So when it broke to the downside, and now you can see it's accelerating to the downside, to me, it is now much more likely that, you can see there's still a gap here to get to oversold. A lot of you are probably familiar with the RSI, and there's a lot of different ways to read this on a lot of different frames. I usually look at the 1 day and the 1 month. If you're day trading or swing trading, there's a lot of other ways you can look at this. But in any event, you can see if we look back historically, you can see this tends to go from oversold to overbought. Now, there was a giant period here where this, 50 seemed to be support between 45 and 50. So we just had another one of these again. But, and pardon my circles, they're awful because I'm horrible at drawing. But you can see, in general, you can just check mark them. We were overbought, then we were oversold to overbought to oversold to overbought. I mean, this is how these oscillators work. And they're not perfect, right? Sometimes it resets at points right in the middle. Ultimately, it does end up, usually resetting in both directions. The other piece of the puzzle was, I think I missed Anthony. I thank you for the super chat. Guys, welcome my boy AI McMac to the stream. Welcome. Is that somebody on the stream? Is that somebody actually on the stream? A friend of yours? Or do I not know what that means? Am I old?
I have no idea.
Well, in any regards, welcome and thanks for the super chat. So you can see this got epically overbought on December 27th, and there's that day that I was talking about. This got to 91.5 on the daily RSI. Now, for typically for stocks, 70 is considered overbought. For the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin itself, I kind of earmark anywhere, up to 80 even. It's very common to run up to 80, but 90, this was a 3+ year high on the daily RSI. So you had to go back 3 full years the last time Marathon was this overbought. So it was massively due for a pullback. Now, was there a chance it could have bounced off of 50 and ran up again? That potential was there, but now it seems like, that ship has sailed. So I think a lot of these things line up. When we look at the Bitcoin chart, I'm going to show you, I think the same thing. It now looks like we're headed towards a full reset, which we're unbelievably overdue for. So that's why now I'm not going to just wait. I'm not going to do nothing. That's kind of the dollar cost average concept, buy the dip and dollar cost average is some combination of what I do. So, I don't rigidly just say every Thursday at 2 p.m. I'm going to buy X. I opportunistically try to dollar cost average in. So I'm slowing down because I do think there's going to be more opportunities along the way, but I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not just going to wait and say, okay, when this hits 30, I'll buy a bunch of marathons. So that's how I do it because I don't know. Is it going to hit 32? Is it going to turn around tomorrow? Maybe. There's no guarantees. Just because I think it's more likely that this is going to happen doesn't mean that this is absolutely going to happen. But it is more and more and more starting to look like we're going to get a more normal reset. It's been we're unbelievably overdue. And we've been saying that for a long time here. Now, with the Bitcoin spot ETFs looming as a potential catalyst, I think that kept everything propped up. It made it run up in the short term. And don't misunderstand me. I think that the Bitcoin ETFs are the biggest catalyst for Bitcoin in history. We haven't even begun that run yet. In fact, they have somehow masterfully found a way to actually make us fear the ETFs and have a lot of people actually leave the space. So to me, that's not what I did there. But having said that, this is pain, right? From go ahead, George.
But Anthony put in another super chat. I think these were the same guys who did a short report on Marathon 10 months ago, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for the super chat and thanks for the info. So we'll take a look and see. Yeah, so there you go. A short report on Marathon. I'll have to double check that and see what that was. But if that's an indicator, I mean, I'm very bullish on Marathon, I can tell you, despite the fact that I do think the next move is down here, but I just think that's a natural part of the cycle. I mean, we ran up just from, October to December. This was up, Marathon was up over 300% in a couple of months. So, okay, we're getting a pullback, and it's a doozy, as they are for all these stocks. Right now, we're now down not quite 50% pullback. So, this got over 31. If it gets to 1550, 1560 something, that'll be a 50% pullback. So we're knocking on the door of a 50% pullback, and it might be a 55% pullback. Who knows? But I do think there's some, there's a couple of different things. There's a little bit of support here. There's not much room left to get a full reset. So even if there's more downside, and I suspect there is, what's my 1-year price target on Marathon? It's above where it was just, 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, this was over $31. So, I think you've got all of that ahead. So that's 100% move to the upside, potentially. Not quite, but, and I think that's only the beginning. So I expect, not financial advice. Obviously, these are all just my opinions, but my price target for Marathon is considerably higher than 31, which would be very close to a double, which it was just at a few weeks ago. We end this poll, George. What's next for Bitcoin?
What is next for Bitcoin?
It's very, very. This is
wow.
This shows the uncertainty that's out there. So 38,000. 34% of you think we're going to 38,000. And I'll go to the one-day chart next and look at that. 22% think we're going to 35,000 or below. So, 55 or 56% think we're about to go down and do a retest. 31%, so, very close. 31% think we're going to stay bouncing in this range between 40 and 44,000. And then only 12%, so this is a little bit telling, only 12% think the next move in Bitcoin is up. So from that, even though these are split between the four, in that regard, the vast majority of those who voted, and we did get 346 votes so far, so thank you everybody for participating. Also, while you're at it, if I could remind everybody, please smash the like button. It does help the channel out. It helps the live stream out in real time. It makes a big difference. And I want to thank everybody for hitting the like button on the live streams and on the videos. It's been making a giant difference for the channel and the videos and the live streams. And I do, we hope that this is useful information, or at least useful commiserating on.
Can we make them? Can they not watch if they don't like it?
you can
It costs nothing. Just hit it.
That's right. The like button is free, and so is the subscribe button. If you enjoy this content, if you're interested in the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin and all that stuff, then feel free to subscribe.
Tom, you know what? Did you ever look into the Ichi clouds again?
No, I have not looked into the Ichi clouds.
Real interesting. What's
going on with the Ichi clouds?
No, it's interesting to look at. I mean, it just is real interesting to see how it goes in the ebbs and flow of Bitcoin. In the Fibonacci.
You just like to say Fibonacci.
What? It's all there.
This is to my point. Like, there's an endless amount of potential technical analysis that you can do, and I try not to get too deep, too far lost into, some of the basic stuff is a good rule of thumb. And as somebody that's essentially, for me, the Bitcoin miners are buy and hold. I know there's a lot of people swing trading these, and I don't object to that, because these are extremely volatile stocks. So if you're swing trading, you ought to be swing trading in volatile stocks. So I understand, like, if that's what you're doing and you're making money at that, but if you're doing so, then you really should have some technical thesis on what your swing trade is, understand your price targets, when you're going to stop out. But, I know a lot of people are making a lot of money swing trading these stocks. For me, my price targets are so many multiples higher than this. I don't want to try to guess. So I'm more of a buy and hold. But there's more than one way to make money with these Bitcoin mining stocks and Bitcoin. King Hazy, thank you for the super chat. King Hazy said, dump it. Where is the like button? You should see a like button. I don't know. There's so many different devices.
Yeah, if you're on mobile, you got to hit the screen and then the little thumb comes up.
Oh, just tap the screen?
Right. It's in the bottom.
So this was Marathon, and I'm not going to go through every single stock like this. I do want to pick a couple other as we go through the live stream and go through them, because there's a few that look a little bit different than this. This is very much, all of these charts look very, very similar. But I'm going to go to, Marathon's partner, if you will, and they're in no way partnering, but for most people, when they think of Marathon, the next thing they think of is Riot. Those have been the two largest by market cap for years and years and years. And, in the past, it wasn't even close. Now there's some making a run at them, but still by far the two largest. If you look at Riot, remember we looked at HUT getting very close to that 30 on the daily RSI, which is kind of considered a reset. So Riot's chart is the best looking one out of all of them, in my opinion. So, and again, this has not got to do with fundamentals. So, you might like Riot, you might despise Riot, you might think they, and I have my list of issues. I did do a Riot deep dive, if you're interested in my thoughts, and a Marathon deep dive. So, I went through all what in my opinion was the good stuff, the bad stuff. But you can see, just from a technical standpoint, I mean, right now we're at 31.15 on the daily RSI. So again, you got to go back to August 28th was the last time. And really, we got very close, but didn't quite reset in September. But this is what all of these look like. So for most of them, they're still hanging out somewhere in around 40, and they have a little bit ways to go to get a full reset. Now, I think it's likely with Riot, you can see it just recently got down to, where was it? So somewhere around 25. So maybe there's a little bit room left to reset down here. And then if you look for me on my chart, I think there's a pretty obvious line of support somewhere. None of these numbers are exact, but somewhere around $9.50. So, to me, that's when, this is another one I will probably buy. Now, I'm trying to build out a marathon position. My Riot position is much larger than my marathon position. And I would prefer they were more equal. So, that's why I bought some marathon today versus some Riot, even though this one looks technically a little bit closer to its bottom. But that's why everybody's buying decision is different, right? Every single person is in a different place with their portfolio. Some people have one stock, some people have multiple of these Bitcoin miner stocks. I'm overweight in this whole industry. There's just no doubt about it. I'm okay with that, but I am. So that's why I'm trying to be a little bit cautious right now and strategic about what I'm doing. Somebody's asking, did Sue give a time frame as to her response? So she did not give a time frame. I don't know. I'm sure, this hit them out of left field and they're going to have to go through it and put together a thoughtful response. I don't know. I got to believe sometime in the next 48 hours, they'll have a response. And that's just me guessing. But, I think a reasonable time frame, they need to respond to this.
Tom, when do you think what the ETFs are doing and buying is going to really come into play here? How long do you think it's going to take for that really to shake out?
Yeah, the ETFs have caused a massive amount also of FUD, confusion, and we talked a lot about on the channel that there could be a couple of week period where, there was some downward pressure after the ETFs hit. So, this has been all of that, and I don't think it's done. So, but the ETFs themselves, the picture hasn't really played out. Really, all the price action that's happening right now is not based on what the ETFs are actually doing. It's based on all the, you called it noise earlier, and I think that's exactly right. There's a lot of talk, a lot of speculation, a lot of fear. The biggest fear out there is, Grayscale was able to convert their trust to an ETF. So this allows a lot of people that have had money locked up for a long time. First of all, it evaporated what was once very close to 50% discount versus their net asset value. So, people made money on that side of it. They also made simultaneously as Bitcoin ran up. A lot of people had a lot of money. It was locked up. This converted to an ETF. Now they can just sell on the open market and get out. And there is a net outflow from the Grayscale Trust. But even with that said, there's been a big net inflow altogether. So all the Bitcoin that's leaving Grayscale is getting absorbed by the other ETFs and then some. So it's already provided a lot of demand pressure on Bitcoin. So you're saying, well, why is Bitcoin pulling back? A lot of this is, it's in the short term. Bitcoin is all cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is very volatile. We had a big run up going into the ETF. It peaked, the day after it ran up another couple thousand, hit 49,000, and now we're turning around. So I'm going to go to the 1 day time frame and show you. I mean, this has been a very, very, we really haven't even left our range yet. I think we're about, so let's go take a look at that.
By the way, Bitcoin's been moving steadily back up.
Nice. And that's going to be key. So I just moved to the 1 day, but first, the real Gary Ginsler, thank you very much for the super chat. George, if CleanSpark doesn't power up in time, it's dumping. So everybody's expecting CleanSpark to power up, in the middle of February with this additional 6 exahash. They then have, another 4 exahash after that, and then another 10 exahash after that. But that's much later. This 6 exahash is imminent. So I do think,
You got to
I
get that going.
yeah, it is important. They were hoping to have that done by December 31st. Then they bumped it back to the middle of January, then the middle of February. I don't. I'm not faulting
Dude,
them. That's not a giant miss. But if they miss all the way into the halving, if they don't get that up and running,
yeah,
it
that's a huge miss.
that would be a huge miss. Exactly, because but every day between now and the halving is with that extra hash is an opportunity for them to hodl Bitcoin. They increased their Bitcoin hodls substantially in recent months, and they have the opportunity to have a sizable
All right.
hodl going into the halving if they can get that online. I think they'll still add to their hodl
So
between. Go ahead,
you want
George.
to hear this one? Last time I spoke about it, this is what I was told, and I don't know if it's still the case, but it had
All
to
right.
do with the supply of the electric, not anything that they were doing.
Yes, you are
And
right.
that's just unbelievable to me. Isn't that unbelievable to you? It's like it doesn't matter how fast you do it, how well you do it, you still got to rely on somebody else to get you the power.
This is the hard part, right? And in
Yeah.
George and I have a background in construction, and that's you rely on others as a part of the critical path to getting these projects complete. So most of the Bitcoin miners have bumped into this along the way, getting where they're going. Right? Marathon, it took drastically longer than they expected, but they did get there, and so. And by the way, Anthony, thanks for the super chat. And Anthony said the short group put a hit piece on Mara last year. So Anthony is saying this is the group that put out, a short report on Marathon as well. So I'll try and take a look and see if I can read both of those and see. It amazes me the knee-jerk reaction the market is capable of. This was ended up 23% move to the downside for HUD. It was 25 at one point. That's a massive move in one day. And I just doubt that most investors had the amount of time today to read that short report cover to cover and vet it out and see, is it meaningful? It's more just a knee-jerk dump. And that oftentimes, there's a lot of events that cause a knee-jerk reaction in one direction or the other. Most of them are a knee-jerk reaction to the downside, and that's what we got today. So I guess time is going to tell how that plays out.
Did you hear that? Core exits chapter 11 on the 24th of this month.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And from everything that I can tell, I have stayed away from Core Scientific. I don't own any Core. And, I'm always concerned about these companies coming out of Chapter 11, but there have been some recent success stories. And more, it's starting to look like that this is
Pump,
going to be
baby.
one of them.
Pump, baby. Sorry.
I would rather wait until after. And of course, obviously, you run the risk that you've missed the move at that point. But for me, I would rather wait until after. And I would actually rather wait until, and, I'll probably long since have missed by then. But I'd like to see them come out of Chapter 11 and perform for a quarter and then get a quarterly, get a 10Q and be able to dig in and see exactly what's going on there.
So they don't have to give us anything from like last year or anything?
Yeah, but it's all, after the restructure plan, everything changes. So, we're going to have to see.
No, but aren't we gonna know? Like, can't we go into bankruptcy court and see like what's their debt going forward and what the
Oh,
how
yeah,
they
we'll
approve it?
know. Yeah, we're going to know that. But what we're not going to know is how do they perform, what's their operational
Oh yeah.
performance, what's their overhead in this new structured business, all those things. Here's one thing that mystifies me. I've never seen this before, and it just absolutely
That'd be a
mystifies
great
me.
vote, by the way.
What, Core?
That's a real going up or going down?
You want to do a quick poll
Yeah.
on that?
Quick poll on that one, dude. get the consensus of what people think. They didn't have to get rid of any of their holder, did they? Hodl, whatever.
They have no Bitcoin.
They have no Bitcoin.
No.
Bitcoiners off the books. They have left the building. That's crazy.
Well, in Chapter 11, you can't hold on
I
to
understand.
assets. And it's worth noting, the majority of Bitcoin miners have either 0 or next to 0 HODL. We'll go through that list, but I mean quickly, you've got Marathon by far with the most Bitcoin at over, they're now over 15,000. I think they could easily bump that number to 20,000 this year, sooner than later. You've got Hut, which was down 23+% today. They have over 9,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Riot has over 7,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Then it goes all the way down to CleanSpark with about 3,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now, CleanSpark for over a year was hovering at around 500 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They quickly ran from 500 to 3,000. They have every chance, in my mind, to get maybe to 5,000 plus or minus. One of the big things we just talked about, can they get that exahash back, not back online? Can they get the 6 exahash addition to their 10 existing up and running before the halving, so that they can build up some of that balance? After that, it drops down to Cypher and Bitfarms, are somewhere just under 1,000. After that, it pretty much falls off a cliff. I think there's one or two more. BTBT has a little, DMG has a little. Everybody else basically rounds down to 0. So most of these companies just sell all their Bitcoin every single month.
When do you think Grayscale will start to stable out?
The Grayscale Bitcoin or the
Yeah.
Grayscale ETF?
Yeah.
Let me post this real quickly.
Okay.
All right. So is Cores a buy coming out of Chapter 11 this month? What are you guys thinking? We'll just do a quick poll on that one. So be sure to vote. We'll leave that up for 2 or 3 minutes and then get something else going. And if you are just arriving, if you could please be so kind as to smash the like button, it helps the live stream out in real time. It is much appreciated. So the one day, it's worth showing, like you said, George. Let me go to the 15-minute real quick. And this, we've had a nice little, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 out of the last 6 15-minute candles have been green. So we've had a little bit of a recovery. And one of the things that I'm looking for is you can see this daily candle on December 11th, if you guys can see which one I'm pointing to. This closed at 41,229. So this says, 41,229. I have a line here of 41,221. I don't know why it's a few dollars different, but that's the number I'm looking at, because every single daily candle since then, and this was December 11th, so this was over a month ago, and you have to go back to December 4th before you have a candle that closes lower than that. This line has held. And by the way, this was the close of the year. This was for the equity markets. Oh, sorry. That's incorrect. Which candle was that? Now, disregard, that was totally incorrect. This daily candle right here has held for over a month, 1 month and 1 week. So call it 5 weeks. And you can see, we are almost exactly at this candle right now. And I can tell you, an hour ago or an hour and a half ago, it really, really, really looked to me like we were going to be closing a daily candle below this. And, you don't know until you get there, and that's why you got to wait for it. But that would be one of the things, to me, that would be a confirmation. This is the line that I'm looking at. George has been talking about 38,000. And for me, you can see between November 15th and basically November 30th, so the last half of November, Bitcoin ran into resistance somewhere just under 38,000. It broke out on December 1st, and then it ran straight up. We've never been anywhere back near this since. So we really haven't had a retest for Bitcoin going all the way back. If I zoom out, normally you retest certain lines of support, and you can see over the summer we were bouncing off of this $25,200 line. We hit it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different times, and then started to inch up to the upside. Since that time, it's just been up, right? We had this move up from September to October. That was, slow and steady. Then we had a quick move up. And then normally you would have some sideways consolidation, but instead we had consolidation with another, pretty decent move to the upside. This was like an 11% move to the upside. And then, so that was another move up and then another move up. So it's just been a long run of just upward pressure for Bitcoin without any relief. So some of this, this was helping. We're all of this period, we've been kind of hanging out. Again, my circles are just horrendous, but you can see we've been in a range since we moved up here on December 4th, every day since then. So from December 5th until today, January 18th, we've had a floor here almost every single day. We've had a ceiling somewhere around 44,000. We did jump above that. This one candle closed above that, and then we went right back below. And then we had the spot ETF. So we had about a 4-day period going into the approval of the ETF and then the day after where we moved above this line and then immediately back down below. So this has all been consolidation. And what that's led to is, so this was the other thing I really wanted to look at. Sorry, I'm back on the daily RSI. And if you look at what Bitcoin has done, I'll just draw a little line here, a temporary line. Right, going all the way back to September 12th, all the way until just a few days ago, we've been at about 45 or above on the daily RSI. So, that's over 4 months without a reset at all, or even moving towards a reset. So now it almost looks to me like you're seeing finally, right here, we're starting to potentially see a break to the downside. So I do think there's still 2 scenarios. We could still just kind of move sideways, right? We really haven't drastically moved outside of this line that we've held for a 4-month period of time. So I suppose that could happen and we could move back up. So to me, that's scenario A, which a lot of you thought in the vote was that we would just keep moving sideways. Scenario B is we get a full reset on the daily RSI. And for as much as I would be miserable pretty much every day on the way down if this happens, because obviously, what's good, I always say what's good for Bitcoin is good for the Bitcoin miners, but the reverse is true. What's bad for Bitcoin is bad for the Bitcoin miners. So you can expect more downward pressure for both of those if something like this happens. But this flip side of that would be, it would be nice after 4 months to be in, at or near oversold territory and have a full reset. So, we've been looking for this next big leg up. I think the next leg up could be a lot longer and stronger if we get this full reset. So as much as I would, not enjoy the ride down, it just seems like that's what the setup is right now. That's my personal opinion. George, you were talking maybe even lower than 30.
I think there's really strong support in the mid 30s. I don't see us getting really below that, but I think it's just going to be this way until the halving. I think we're in misery land for the next, it's less than 90 days away, so it's not really that big of a deal.
So if I did, to your point, George, if I add a line right here, this goes back to November 9th. So, this was the bottom side of this range, and that's around 35.5. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Right.
know, we got something just under 38. We got something at around 35.5. We've got, a line here that held around 34,000. Who knows?
Right in that area, though.
And I think that's what people on, in our poll agreed with these areas. We don't know. Listen, if I could,
So
I
here's my question:
go ahead.
Is there a point? So I know you don't have you have holdings in companies that hold Bitcoin. Is there a point where you would get nervous and get out if it gets to 31,000 and we get cut in half again from where we are right now with our Bitcoin miners? Would you get out?
I would not. I would absolutely not get out unless there was some external news that
Like
changed,
Black Swan event or something?
like the US government took some definitive action against Bitcoin, which I think would be, relatively speaking, a short-term move to the downside. First of all, I don't think anything like that's going to happen, and I just picked that as, my random example. Some other, like you said, black swan event that causes downward pressure, or some fundamental change that I just don't see what that would be. I'm very bullish on Bitcoin going into 2024 and 2025. I think that all the previous cycles, we're at a point in the cycle where we have not even typically started to run yet. So the majority of the run would be left ahead of us. And this cycle to me has significantly more tailwinds than the previous cycles because the adoption is, so drastically further ahead than it was the last cycle around. And, the cycles before that was almost non-existent. But we now have, 11 spot ETFs. We have growing awareness of Bitcoin. I think that those are going to feed upon each other. So the thing that these spot ETFs is going to do is this allows access to an awful lot of money that did not previously have access to Bitcoin. I'm just going to spend a minute talking about this because this is another thing that I think people are getting. I think they're getting not right about these ETFs. A lot of people are concerned that, I've seen a series of videos with people being concerned that this is BlackRock's move to, this was all a big trick. And this is just BlackRock taking over Bitcoin. And it's very bad for Bitcoin. It's very bad for Bitcoin holders. And they're going to be able to manipulate Bitcoin. And to me, that misses the point of an ETF. So, you guys can judge for yourself and maybe we can do a poll and you can see if you agree or disagree. Because obviously a lot of people disagree with me. I've seen an endless stream of videos from all of which are from YouTubers, 5 or 10 times the size of our channel here. We're just a small little corner of the internet. And to me, the point is these Bitcoin spot ETFs. There have been a few articles put out. Let me find one of them. Okay. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF hits the $1 billion assets under management in 1 week. Okay, so that's the headline. A lot of people, I can't remember if it was somebody at JP Morgan, somebody somewhere said, sooner than later, BlackRock will be the largest holder of Bitcoin. And while that is true, I think it's an extremely important distinction to make that it's not BlackRock's Bitcoin, right? A spot ETF is just that. This is the people that are invested in the ETF. It's their Bitcoin. BlackRock doesn't even hold the Bitcoin. It's in custody, right? They picked Coinbase as the custodian. So if you buy into the BlackRock ETF, that means that there is Bitcoin set aside in custody by Coinbase. So all of this is regulated by the SEC. This is not a trading desk. And a lot of people have put videos out to the extent, oh, BlackRock, I saw a bunch of videos. BlackRock, liquidated half their Bitcoin and they were holding, half the ETF in cash and then they bought the dip. Well, you're going to see right here, the very next line in this article, IBIT, which is their ETF, IBIT's holdings consists of 99% Bitcoin and about $60,000 in fiat, which is in US cash. So, and it's really, I think, 99.9%. And you're going to see if you go into all these ETFs, and I've done it, you're going to see they all hold somewhere between 99 and 100% of the assets in Bitcoin. And that is because that's what a spot ETF does. So, you know, I think it's important to understand. Now, it is different than owning Bitcoin yourself. So, you know, it's not in your wallet. You don't own it. You don't have custody of it in that manner, but it's not BlackRock's either, right? It's held in, they're a custodian of this on your behalf. So it's a valid point. And George and I talked about this, and his counterpoint is, well, then can I take it and put it in my wallet? And the answer is no, you can't. So that's a fair point. So if you're concerned as an individual investor that, you know, owning shares in an ETF doesn't behave the same way as owning Bitcoin, well, then you're right. That's true. But if you're concerned that somehow BlackRock is amassing some massive pile of Bitcoin for them to manipulate the Bitcoin price with, that narrative is incorrect. And it's prevalent right now, and it's one of the things that's freaking people out. Thoughts, George?
No. Oh, I thought you said, did I lose George?
Any
freaking people out. I'm freaked out. Look at this vote. This is crazy. It's almost down the middle.
Is Core's a buy coming out of Chapter 11 this month? So we got a lot of votes. We said this would be a quick one. I want to just do a quick vote and let's see. You know, it's funny. Yesterday I brought up an article, or 2 days ago, and asked the members, you know, if they thought I was nuts, and 20% of them basically said, "Yeah, we think you're wrong," which I could be, right? I'm giving you my thoughts. I'm giving you my research that I've done.
So here's my question: what does Core do for money? Like as soon as they come out of bankruptcy?
Well, they're mining Bitcoin.
Right, I know, but
so
are they able to mine enough to pay their bills?
I'm going to say yes to that. The answer to that was they were cash, especially at this current price. If their model is similar to what it was, and they actually added some exahash, so I'll circle back around because I cut myself off in the middle of that comment. If their business resembles what it did, cash for operations was not a problem for them. The problem for them was they had $1 billion in debt. So they had to pay the interest on that, which is obviously an astronomical number. And in addition to that, they had to service the debt. In other words, pay down the principal. So they were staring an equation where it didn't matter that they were, you know, cash flow positive from operations. Between interest and principal payments, they weren't getting, they were done. They were out of, they ran out of cash. So this time around, one of the articles that I read said, you know, after the exercise of all the warrants, and I'm not sure I understand why that's a fair assumption that all warrants will be exercised in a short period of time. But they said after the exercise of the warrants, they're going to have zero debt. So this Chapter 11 reorganization will have wiped out $1 billion in debt. So this means, yes, you know, I think they reported 16.9 exahash. So one of the questions I had was, how in Chapter 11 did they increase the amount of equipment that they had and increase their exahash? That was confusing to me because all year long it decreased, which made sense to me because, you know, they were having to reorganize to get rid of their debt. But yet in December, their exahash rate went up a lot. So how can you tell your debt holders, all your creditors, you're not getting paid in full? You're going to get paid some portion of X amount on the dollar, but at the same time, we're out spending CapEx money. So I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe it simply increased because they had machines on the sidelines that they were able to plug back in. So that's a more plausible, you know, drop in the comments if you guys know. Is that why their exahash jumped? Because I found that confusing. It would make no sense to tell creditors, you're not getting paid any money back, but we're going to go buy a bunch of new machines. So let me know if you guys know. But the answer to your question, George, is they will be cash flow positive, and they will mine a lot of Bitcoin. They're immediately going to be one of the, top Bitcoin. Well, they already are.
Do they already know what price they're going to trade at? Or is that determined the day before?
They know what price they're going to open at, but what we're going to have to see is what happens. What happens? JL, thanks, JL. Every once in a while, a comment catches my eye. We don't think you're wrong, just nuts.
Well, they must be talking about you because they think I'm wrong.
They are. I think they are talking about me. Would I rather be wrong or nuts, or am I both? All right, so let's end this poll. New poll. So people were pretty split on course. 55% said buying opportunity. 44%, I guess we'll round up to 45, think that it is not a buying opportunity. So there you go. I mean, that's the flip a coin coming out of a bankruptcy. If you were to just say in general, it's usually a bad investment. But I do think this stands a really good chance of being, one of the outliers where this ends up going well for shareholders. I am not one of those. Just doing a quick poll.
That is a question. Tom, who are you, Tom?
Who am I? Who are any of us?
Who are... Is Hut going bankrupt? I would say not right now.
Hut has a very strong balance sheet. It's not quite as strong post-merger, and I know that's one of people's concerns, but it's still, they have 9,000 Bitcoin. Yes, they've pledged some of that against a loan. They do now have a loan, but it's nowhere near. I think it was like between 15 or 18% of the Bitcoin that they hold from a value standpoint the last time I did the math. So, I mean, to me, I can't see any reason why Hut would go out of business anytime soon. Someday is their business model not going to work and they end up, not surviving? They're in no imminent danger of going out of business based on their financial statements. And their auditors agree with that statement, or they would have had to say otherwise. For whatever that's worth. Not that their auditors are always right. All right, so super simple poll. Do you think BlackRock is going to be bad for Bitcoin? BlackRock and their ETF.
1 year, 5 year, 6 months, 10 years?
Greater than 3 months. So, however long the madness lasts surrounding this ETF event, once the dust settles, and as BlackRock accumulates Bitcoin over time in their trust, is that going to be a bad thing for Bitcoin, in your opinion? Heimbo said, can we play the Jamie Dimon video from Davos? I wanna talk. It's my strong opinion. He does not believe a single word that he's saying. I have a rule. I don't assume that smart people are stupid. So I think Jamie Dimon's a smart guy, right? He runs one of the largest companies in the entire world. On top of it being one of the largest companies in the entire world, it's a financial institution. So he certainly is probably well-versed in matters, of financial assets. So the things that he says about Bitcoin sometimes get a little silly. And I don't know if that was yesterday or today. I watched that. There was one sentence in particular that was just, he gave his whole rant about how it's bad and evil and it's the pet rock and all that other stuff. And he swore and said, this is the last time I'm ever talking about this. I'm sick of you guys asking me about it. So after he got through saying all that, let me see if I can just find this here. Okay, so the title is JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says Satoshi may erase Bitcoin supply limit. Backs tokenizing things you do something with. Okay, so I'm not going to read you the litany of horrendous things that he said about Bitcoin. If I did read them, we would probably get demonetized or cut off or whatever the case may be. But I will say this. He said, referring to the limited supply of Bitcoin. So this was in response because I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's one of the anchors at CNBC. He asked him, because Jamie Dimon said, well, Bitcoin has no purpose. It serves no purpose, so it's worthless. And, this person whose name I'm forgetting, he rebutted and said, well, how about gold? Gold doesn't really by and large serve a purpose. It's just a store of value. And so Jamie Dimon immediately fired back, yeah, but gold has a limited supply. So, I mean, come on. I don't know if he said that by accident and then immediately realized what he had said, or if this is just him saying things that he knows are just nonsense, because obviously, two things. Number one, gold doesn't have a finite supply. In my lifetime, we've found more gold than there was when I was born. So, and that trend will continue. Gold is something that gets mined. There's limitations to the amount we can mine at any given time, but the supply continues to grow and grow and grow. Bitcoin is the opposite. There's going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and that's it. So then he answered. So when the person said, but Bitcoin actually is the one that has a finite supply, there will be 21 million Bitcoin. And then he said, in 2150, the last Bitcoin will be mined. So it's actually the year 2140, give or take. And nobody knows the exact date. But anyway, it's 100 years from now plus. The last Bitcoin will be mined. And there'll be 21 million Bitcoin. And that's it. So Jamie Dimon's response was, let me just say thank you, Darren, for the super chat. Get Windex head Jason interview 3 months later. No go. I know. I want to do a lot of interviews. This has been an unbelievably busy time for Bitcoin miners. I will get back to these interviews. Thank you, Darren, for the super chat and for reminding. Anyway, so his response was, Jamie Dimon said, quote, I think there's a good chance when we get to that 20 million Bitcoin, Satoshi is going to come out there, laugh hysterically, go quiet, and all Bitcoin are going to be erased. How the hell do you think it's going to stop at 21? Okay, first of all, it's Satoshi, which he knows. He's just intentionally. This is what I'm saying. His hatred for Bitcoin runs deep. Second of all, if there was an actual person with that name, they'd be 175 years old when this happens. So, third of all, Bitcoin is open source. Everybody can see the code. We know there's going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and that's it. So, he knows all of that. He wasn't born yesterday. He's not ignorant to Bitcoin. He just hates it. And mark my words, he hates it until he loves it, because that day's coming. Don't know when, but that's how all of this works, right? How many people have we seen? You only have to go to BlackRock has a Bitcoin ETF, right? BlackRock has done 180 degree on Bitcoin. So that's all I have to say about that. We continue to move up, George. 41,287.
I just saw it was I like my number is 41,350.
41,350. What chart are you on?
Livecoin watch. Who cares?
Either way. Moving
Getting
up.
higher.
Moving up. The real Gary Gensler said getting
Yeah, I agree
smashed
with
until
that.
Grayscale finishes the dump.
Yep.
So the thing is, and this could, for all I know, this could happen. I do think that, so finishes the dump is the question. When is that going to be done? And again, I will reiterate, and I do, if I can find, I'll go to the article. There's a massive net inflow, including the amount that's leaving Grayscale. There's a massive net inflow into the Bitcoin ETFs. And that includes the fact that, yes, there is absolutely a big outflow coming out of the Grayscale, what was the Grayscale Trust. And that is not done. And it's happening rapidly. And the thing is, that's not going to last as long as people think. So, first of all, I think it'll settle at a bit. Not every single Bitcoin is going to leave the Grayscale Trust for a variety of different reasons. One of which is a lot of people are going to have to do the math. There's two reasons. Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's two main reasons I think that people will leave the Grayscale Trust or have already left. Number one, their money's been tied up a long time. They made a lot of money and they want to take profits. So they're able to do so and they're doing that. And then there's a second group of people. The Grayscale Trust's fee is 1.5%. So there's the majority of the other ETFs fee is between 0.2 and let's call it 0.2 and 0.3%. So significantly smaller fee. So there'll be some amount that moves over because of the fee. But remember, there's going to be another giant group of people that have gigantic gains. And in order to move from one Bitcoin ETF to another, all right, you don't just get to slide over there. You got to sell your Bitcoin, recognize your tax gain, and then move over. So, for some people, that may cost them 30 or 40% of their profits. For some people that are in long-term, maybe it's going to be 15 or 20%, whatever the case may be. And, depending on what country you're in and all that stuff. But there's a lot of people that 1% fee, 1.5% fee isn't going to be enough for them to say, all right, I'm going to take all my profits and pay taxes this year. So also at some point, I do think Grayscale will start to balance that fee out a little bit. In the meantime, it doesn't make sense for them. They're making a lot of money on that fee. But yes, I do agree. There will be outflow of the Grayscale ETF, probably for the next couple of months. That's my opinion. I think it will decelerate, right? The people who most wanted out have gotten out, but I don't think we're done. I think it will continue. It will just slow down and eventually settle itself out. But with all that said, the buying pressure is still, there's more going into the other ETFs, and I think that equation is going to continue to grow. So Bitcoin passed, with these ETFs, they've already passed silver. They are now the second largest commodity from an ETF standpoint in the world, second only to gold. So, and we're only, a week into this. So I think there's a lot of room left to the upside. I think there's a lot, I'm going to go to the 1 month and just take a look. And let's see what the poll is doing. Do you think that BlackRock is going to be bad for Bitcoin? So right now we have 66% say no and 34% say yes. So basically 1/3 think it's going to be bad and 2/3 think it will not be bad. So I know it's maybe a little more complicated question than that, right? It's just a lot of things are not just as simple as good or bad. There's pros and cons. I just think it's important that people understand, when they buy that Bitcoin, it's going into custody, and that's affecting both sides of the supply and demand equation. Because the BlackRock ETF, and really I think the top 3 or 4, and we see who those are now. Obviously, BlackRock is the largest. Fidelity is not far behind them, and they're two of the three largest money managers. And so it's no surprise that their ETFs are gaining adoption at a faster pace. ARK Invest's ETF is doing very well also. So I think there's a bunch of these that'll do their thing. I'm going to mispronounce this.
You take that one, Tom.
How about I can't even take a shot at this. P. Green Circle P. I apologize that I can't pronounce your name, but thank you very much for the super chat. And it's Bitfarms Cleanspark. So
Isn't it Poutine?
let's go with that. Bitcoin, Bitfarms Cleanspark under $3, under $7 is stupid cheap. Just brace for pre-halving volatility and be rich in a year or so. Thank you, Tom and George, for your work. You are welcome, and thank you very much for the super chat, and thanks for your words. And I think that is dead on. This is very painful in the short term. The short term kills people in the long term. This is what prevents people from increasing their wealth. And I'm not going to say getting rich. This is another thing George and I talk about. You know, it's very frustrating watching all these people and their get rich investing schemes out there on YouTube. We don't get rich quick, right? We got to invest wisely. There's volatility. There's these painful days like today. This is a classic example of, you know, a brutal day in a series of brutal days if you hold Bitcoin or if you hold the Bitcoin miners. But if you do what P just said, grin and bear it, deal with it, a year from now, you know, and this leads me right to the 4-year cycle. So, you know, here's Bitcoin on the 4-year cycle. All right. So the last halving was in May. Now this says May 1st, but it wasn't May 1st. The last halving, because I'm on the monthly chart. The last halving was in May of 2020. So effectively, we're where this yellow circle is, right? We're somewhere in this month. So, you know, in those couple of months, there was a little downward pressure. Now, there was a black swan event at this time. So, you know, this downward pressure in these 2 months, this was February and March of 2020. For those of you who don't remember, they shut the world down for that period of time. All assets, the market crashed across the board. Bitcoin was not immune. So there was a move down. But even if you don't include that move down and you go from the top prior to any of that happening, from the top of this up until the peak of the bull run, that's a 600% move to the upside from where we are right now in the previous cycle to the peak of the previous cycle. Now, that 600% move was the smallest one out of the 3 Bitcoin halvings that had previously occurred. If you go to the one prior to that, you know, and this doesn't look as big, but that's you'd be going essentially from, you know, around here to here. So, you know, that's a 37x in that period of time. And from the bottom, it was even a lot more than that. So, you know, 37x, 10x, maybe it's a 3x this time. Whatever it is, you can see that historically speaking, in the past, there's been the vast majority of the move to the upside is ahead of us in the 4-year cycle. The other things that are happening, I think, are adding to this equation. In other words, there will be rate cuts in 2024. That's another thing that's been short-term pain. Since we got the CPI data, which came in higher than expected, things did take a turn. The futures, let's go to if you look at the CME futures, forget the January meeting. I did see a couple YouTubers say they think there's going to be a rate cut in the January meeting. There's a 2.6% chance built into the futures. I think there's no chance of that happening. I cannot fathom a scenario where they do that. There's no reason to. But what's really changed is at one point, this was basically all but built in. We were something like 85% chance that there would be a 25 or 50%, or sorry, 50 basis point rate cut in the March meeting. You can now see that's gone down dramatically. There's now almost a 43% chance we're not going to get a rate cut. So this has sent shockwaves through the market. It's why there's been a big pullback in the Russell in this same period of time. The DXY, which we follow on the channel, I'm going to go to that because you're going to see in that same period of time, there's been a run up in the DXY, which is the strength of the US dollar. All of these things in the very short term are bringing us pain and suffering. A lot of people have parted ways with their Bitcoin and their Bitcoin mining stocks due to this pain and suffering, which is exactly what they want. And this is why we don't get rich quick. We get rich doing what this super chat said, which is just brace yourself for the pre-halving volatility and, wait for the cycle to complete itself. So you can see a lot of things in the short term did not go our way, and it has caused some short-term pain. And I mean, I'm right there with everybody, and that's why we have these streams. That's why Georgia and I came on today, because I thought today just emotionally for me was one of the worst days. It was not a good day for my portfolio. Breaking to the downside, watching another red day and then maybe breaking out of our range. Now it looks like maybe we might hold on and stay inside of this trading range. So who knows? Time will tell, and whether or not we break out today or tomorrow, or maybe this is the bottom and we're up from here. Any which way, all that is super short-term stuff.
Nice.
So we'll end our poll. It's somewhere of 1/3, 2/3 on the BlackRock thing. So more to follow. We'll definitely keep our eye on the ETFs. They have wreaked havoc with Bitcoin in the short term, but I do think it's important to look at this chart and see, even with what feels like unbelievable volatility, because we did have, drag this down. We did run all the way up. So, and this was for minutes. This only happened for a few minutes. If I could drag this down to one 15-minute candle is what ran up to and over 49,000. That's how fast it corrected. So, but in any event, there was a little bit of hype, but mostly we're just sideways for a month. And while Bitcoin's sideways for a month, the Bitcoin miners have gotten beaten up badly. Any other thoughts, George?
No, I'm getting hungry though.
Food. Let me just see if there was anything else that I had here that's...
You up for hibachi?
Ooh. I actually got company coming over.
Oh, you didn't even invite me. See how you are?
It's not my company.
Sue.
It's...
Sue.
Oh,
Nice.
that is not...
Yeah.
Incorrect.
No.
Here you go, George. I'll just throw one last one at you quickly. Tether reportedly bought 8.9 thousand Bitcoin for $380 million. They remain the 11th largest holder of Bitcoin. I know Tether's one of your issues in this world.
But what is concerning to me is it just seems like because of stuff like that, I can't believe price is as bad as it is.
Because they're buying.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it goes to the fact that the big money knows this is a buying opportunity, right? Not financial advice. That's my opinion. But, why is Tether buying 9,000 Bitcoin? Because they think it's about to crash? I mean, not necessarily that they know any more than you know, right? We're all doing our best to figure out what's going on here.
Well, I guess we'll see everybody tomorrow, right?
All right, yeah, we have a regularly scheduled live stream every Friday after the market closes in the US. So thank you guys very much for joining us on this impromptu live stream. It was just a very volatile day. So we wanted to get on and talk about it. So look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Have a fantastic night. George, thank you for
You too, Tom.
joining us. All right.
Peace
And
out.
all right. Good night, everybody.